Public Space Travel is a leftist, anti-capitalist podcast of disgruntled academics, video gamers, and friends. Our belief is that knowledge should be made more accessible and be used for anti-oppression and non-hierarchical revolutionary ends. You can support what we do at patreon.com/public space travel and reach out to us at publicspacetravel@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 208-502-1406. Now, on to the show.
Welcome, everybody. This is Public Space Travel. I am Luci, joined here today with Hunty.
Hey.
And we also have shadow producer Marks.
Hi.
Today we're doing something different. We're starting a weekly episode, and we're just going to quickly cover topics that we've found through the internet, things that we feel like are, we could have a little discussion on and just bring it to your attention if you don't know. This is going to be kind of an experiment in a ways. I know usually our format is more long, deep dives on a certain topic, but I felt like with so much news going on that we kind of felt like maybe it was a good idea to cover a little bit more. If there is things that you feel like we missed or could cover or talk about better, we are welcome to all of the ideas that you'll have. And to do that, you can just find us just real quickly at Public Space Pod on Twitter. Reach any of us through there. And yeah, so with that, let's just get on to the news. So today is the 12th of July. And just getting started. The far right, movements have been given voice by a president who is hoping that destabilizing the American people will lead to his re-election. I'm sure most of us are aware of this. He's been promoting tweets by known racists and conspiracy theories that are supported by the darkest corners on the internet. There's an Intercept article that just came out called "The Far Right Revolution Was Waiting for an Opportunity, Now It's Here" by Murtaza Hussain. I'm sure I pronounced that incorrectly, and I'm very sorry. In this article, it does a pretty good job of describing all of the ways that the far right and neo-Nazi, fascist, racist assholes, the way that they have just sort of wormed their way into our country, our lives, everything.
Mainstream, really. Like it's not even like they've been here. Like we know that they've been here. Welcome to the Confederacy. But
yeah, it's the mainstream far right is here. Before we go into like this, I just want to quickly say that it's really annoying that so much of the discussion in terms of like, I guess, the culture war and everything is being forced to have like debates almost with people who don't believe in human rights, which is like, I've always kind of been like, it's like, like the idea of like if two people are arguing in the street, yelling at each other, and one's an idiot and one's a smart person, that the passerby just sees two idiots arguing. And I've always kind of like tried to avoid that. And so it's just sort of annoying that, like you said, it's mainstream now. We have to deal with it. It's been there for a long time, but with just, the intellectual dark web and everything with Jordan Peterson and everything, it's like now we have to talk to people who are fundamentally unhinged in a way that is like they should be put in a special place instead. I don't know if that's too much to say.
No, I understand. I don't know that I need to talk to them, but I know that I need to deal with the fallout of the things that they believe and the ways in which those are very, very, in very real ways shaping public policy in America. And you can see that through Trump, and you can see that through things like terrorist acts that they're, carrying out. And you can see that in the streets when they're, using open carry as a way to, try to silence other voices. There's so many ways that we're seeing it now that that I really think it's shaping the ways in which policy is sort of being enacted, especially by Trump. So I don't know that I need to deal with them. I just need to deal with the aftermath of them being here. I'm afraid to have a conversation with people who have those sorts of leanings and tendencies. I think that you're right when you say unstable. And I think that instability comes from fear, like a deep-seated fear of what they think white America should look like, and our fundamental disagreement that America has never been white America.
Right. I want to quickly recommend, there's a podcast by Robert Evans called The War on Everyone, which is a terrifying listen, but I think a very insightful listen on the ways that the KKK and the far right people have used the internet to spread their message. Effectively, they had this idea. They were almost like, actually, there's a really interesting part where they actually talk about how the far right, Nazis and racists, that they one of the early adopters of the internet, specifically because they saw it as a way to spread their message more quickly and more insidiously through, at that time, like the early 80s where things were less monitored. It gets crazy. And I think that's probably like a good listen to go along with this Intercept article. We'll link everything, by the way, in our show notes, in our description. Yeah, it's I don't know what's going to happen from this. This is something that we're going to have to keep dealing with and keeping tabs on.
Yeah. I think that part of the point of the article, too, that Hussein has written has a lot to do with the ways in which historically these sorts of movements rise from the kinds of uncertainty that we're seeing right now in America. I mean, not only a global pandemic, which has not been dealt with well in America, continues to not be dealt with. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying, economic collapse as a large result of this pandemic, then racial tensions and what people are deeming culture wars, like all these sorts of things are sort of coming to a confluence. And he mentions that historically, societies who deal with these sorts of things all at one time don't, like, it's hard. Like, societies collapse around these sorts of things. And so but that's why there's a doorway for these sorts of people to enter. And I mean, part of Trump being president was that idea that we need something new. I think that part of that was that white nationalism sort of pushed back against our first black president, quote unquote. And so all those things sort of coming into play just makes it really difficult, I think, for society in general to deal with the number of things that are happening, which is why white nationalism has this moment in time where I think that they can feel safer coming out into the public. There are so many things for us to deal with, not just this idea that like racism continues to be rampant, which many of us already knew. So
the what you said about it being safer, that is the part that I think terrifies me the most, is that like now, like if you go on Twitter, you see I mean anywhere really, but you'll just see these videos of racist people, these Karens and whatnot, these Karens and these Kens being just overtly racist.
Is it Karens and Kens? Are we calling them Kens? Is it Karen and Ken?
Kens. I just like to use the K's twice. I need a third one in there to really wrap up their whole shtick.
Karens, Kens, and their kids.
Oh, there it is. But like, they know they're being recorded, and yet somehow they seem more, like they seem more emboldened. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
They seems like, because you would think that they'd be more ashamed, or at least I would hope. I think that was the original idea. Is like, let's just film all these people, let's shame them, let's name and shame, let's find their employers, let's get them fired. And I mean, it's kind of working, I guess. I think we could probably do a whole segment of people who have lost their jobs or you know,
Yeah.
things like that. But this, yeah, like you said, it's getting more mainstream, so we have to contend with it, but also we have to deal with it in our regular everyday lives. I mean, how many stories now have you heard where black people are getting guns pulled on them from just regular white citizens for no other reason that the white person just didn't like what they said or did? Like, it's usually very vague, and it doesn't ever seem like the person who's being harassed by the gun owner is really threatening that other person's life in any way.
Yeah. And then I mean, a transition to another story that we wanted to talk about, just as a sort of carrying along those same lines, is even when you have people who have straight up murdered black humans, even then it's difficult to sort of prosecute. Obviously, Breonna Taylor, we have that as a really good example, but just now, just this week, the ex-cop who killed George Floyd is creating a defense in court. And what does that look like? That he's saying that, George Floyd was at least to some degree culpable. And that's racism at work. Like, that's to say this black man, just by living, is culpable in his own death.
Yeah, it's that's the next thing we did want to talk about is the ex-cop who's what's his name? Thomas Lane. Yeah. One of the cops that was there. His argument in court right now is like you said, it's George Floyd had something, he had his own part to play in him getting murdered. Which it amounts to saying, that there was movement in the car. So here's the thing. So let me try to find this. So the argument they're making is Lane initially notices movement in the car when approaching the vehicle that Floyd was in, and he demands to see Floyd's hands at least 10 times while Floyd is seated in the vehicle. Floyd attempts to leave the vehicle before being asked to exit. Upon then exiting, when asked to, Lane is yelling demands to Floyd as to hand placement and where to stand. Floyd continues to move around until he is eventually cuffed and moved to the sidewalk where he is seated. I'm trying to find, there's another part in here where they talk about how Lane was trying to be accommodating to Floyd as well. There's a picture that they're trying to paint in this article, which, by the way, I forgot to mention the article's name. So this is by lawandcrime.com, which is kind of a funny name. The article is written by Colin Kalmbacher. Well, I'm ruining all these names. Kalmbacher?
Colin Kalmbacher. I would say that's right.
Colin Kalmbacher. And so as far as I gathered by reading this article, Thomas Lane is trying to make this argument that not only did Floyd do things wrong in terms of listening to the police, basically, that also Lane was trying to be accommodating to Floyd at different times while he was explaining that he was uncomfortable and things like that. And so they're trying to paint this picture that Lane's not really that bad of a guy, and things just, took a wrong turn and it wasn't really his fault. That's what it seems like to me. There's a lot more in here. There's like the full-on legal document in here, showing the defense's argument. I mean, this is like why, like when the George Floyd first started, everyone said, okay, it's great that everyone's out on the streets and we're doing all this stuff, but it's not gonna be easy. You can't just watch people paint street signs or change street names and paint bright letters that say Black Lives Matter and be done with it, because that's what they always do. I mean, this kind of goes into a different topic altogether, like performative change. But there's always this like, oh, we hear you, we will do the right thing. And what they're just trying to do is they're just trying to tell you to calm down while they figure out how to not do the right thing.
Well, I mean, when you watch the video, if you've watched the video of George Floyd's death, it's, first of all, it's tremendously difficult it's like a tremendously difficult thing to watch, but there are so many questions about why these 3 police officers who were subsequently charged, right? 3 of them. Like, at what point did they feel it necessary to exacerbate the situation to the point that it, why? Because a black man was in a car? Like, I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. And for him to say, oh, we were accommodating. No, people are scared of you. Like, you have guns, and people of color are killed on a daily basis by police officers. So no, that's not accommodating. You being there and just asking him to see his hands 10 times, I'm terrified at that point, and I am a white lady. I could be a Karen. I could be a successful Karen. I'm not. I would like to say that. But I'm just saying, like, I would be terrified at that point. And so for this dude to be like, oh, I was being accommodating, I was trying to make this work. No, you weren't. And for cops to have no idea that that's what it's like for a regular human person, exacerbated a million times by people of color, is ridiculous. And it's irritating and upsetting to me. That's what the defense looks like.
It feels very gaslighty. It feels very like if someone was to hit you, if people have been in abusive relationships, they already know. Like, if someone was to like hit you, and then you're like, oh, I don't like that you hit me, and then I go, well, the issue was that you were standing in the wrong spot, and so that's why it happened. And I tried to tell you before I hit you. But so that's what happened. So really, it's just all very reasonable. That's a good
analogy. Yeah. But I hope so. Even though we have these sorts of like movements, these far right movements, I feel like the general consensus among good thinking humans is that this is not okay. Like, we're done with seeing this happen to our fellow humans. I hope that momentum continues, but like you were talking about, some of that is performative, I think, to some degree, right? I mean, you have these white folks who say that they want to do right by, other community members. And I'll let you, do you want to lead into the next story then about how that goes so far awry?
Yeah, I just also want to just say that, by the way, like, the other thing adding to this movement will probably never end, and it's really important to keep notice of that, is because at this point, 2 officers have been released on bail by money that was donated. And that's, I mean, we're talking about like the whole mainstream far right, like, that's people donated money to release these murderers. So and it's not cheap. So okay, anyway, what was the next thing?
So performative justice. This idea that folks want to do right by communities that are not their own, and how many white folks just might not know how to do that very well, especially rich white folks. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the rich white folks. How fucked up they did it this week.
I was thinking about earlier today, I was like, should we add a Karen segment where we just like go through a bunch of different Karen moments of the week? Like Karens of the week or something?
Karens of the week. Karens and kids, Kens and their kids.
KKK corner, or the KK corner, or I don't like that. But there is this really famous band that I've never heard of called Antebellum.
Lady Antebellum.
Lady Antebellum. That's it.
They're country music, right?
They're country music. I think it's like this new Americana style. I haven't listened to it, but I'm assuming it's like this like folk Americana style where it's like it's like overly produced.
New Americana.
Overly produced Appalachian folk music.
Sure, okay.
I'm assuming.
I don't know. I don't know that I know. I can't name one of their songs. If I'm being really honest, I can't be like, that's definitely Lady Antebellum song. However, they were on this show called Songland, which I love. So that's the only reason I know who they are.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard of them before, but I think that I welcome
I
anyone.
think New Americana.
I welcome anyone on Twitter to get in my mentions and correct me on this, because I'm not gonna
Right.
listen to them after this either. Just so you know,
Oh.
I'm not gonna look them up
for sure.
I've never looked it up this whole time that I found this. But okay, the story is that they decided to support Black Lives Matter, the movement, by changing their name to Lady A. Which,
Yeah, so dropping antebellum because that has connotations of like the Confederacy and slavery and all these other sorts of things. In case people don't know what antebellum is, antebellum South is that time, you know, when slavery was like big business. So
big business. I wish the listeners, Hunty was doing a little like shimmy with her shoulders. That
big business.
It's big business. Hey, it's big business down here in the South.
It's big
the
business.
Slavery stuff.
We got the slavery stuff. So yeah. So Lady Antebellum decides to drop antebellum.
And they go with Lady A, which I feel like that's such a lazy, stupid.
It's like when you tell somebody fuck off, but like you don't know if you're in the right company to say fuck, so you just say F off. It's the same thing.
Everyone knows what
Like
you
it's the
said.
same.
Ooh, I got a perfect.
You said what you said.
Like you can park your car outside, but everyone still knows that you drove there.
Sure.
I heard that from somewhere else.
I love the analogies that you're coming with today for
Thank
sure.
you.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so they changed their name to Lady A. There's a problem. What's the problem, Lucy?
The problem is there's already someone who goes by the name Lady A blues singer. And so what Lady A or Antebellum decides to do is sue that singer. Oh, important to note, the singer is black.
Important to note, a black woman.
A black woman. A black woman, a black
who
singer
goes by Lady A.
who goes by Lady A, who's been going by that name. I'm not sure how long,
For
but she had it
decades.
first.
It's been a long time. It's been like decades.
Decades, okay. Actually, I'm gonna go listen to her music. I will not listen to Antebellum's music.
For real.
But she had this name. So Antebellum goes, we want to change her name to Lady A because we're too lazy to actually think of a real name. And then I go, that name's already taken. Well, I don't like that because I'm a Karen still, and I'm going to sue you for the right to be racially woke. Okay.
So Lady A, the singer, said that they contacted her, I guess, and asked about it at first, and they were like trying to be all pleasant and say, you know, like, oh, we'll promote your music and we'll do like some songs together or whatever, but they had no intention of paying her for the use of her name. God. And you know, so like copyright law or whatever, intellectual property, I don't actually know what laws like are related to this particular issue in, you know, like the music world, but regardless, there was like, apparently they had no intention of paying her. And Lady Antebellum and Lady A, sorry, whoever, what are we calling them now then? Lady K? Lady Karen?
Lady K, I like that.
But if you don't intend to pay somebody for the use of the name that they have because you want to use it and you weren't there first, well, that's not right. Yeah. We can all, I mean, they make money. Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't,
and money.
It wasn't your name.
But they do.
Someone had the name. So, I mean, what happens when you want to make a new website and then you find out that someone else already bought the domain? Or you want a username. When you go on Instagram, you make a new profile. Do you go sue the person who had the username first?
Because you're more famous, or like how does it even work? So this is the performative part. Like they go out of their way to tell everybody they're changing their name to something lazy. We can all agree that just dropping the Ntebellum, it's laziness, lazy. Mm-hmm. They go out of their way to tell everybody they're changing their name and then sue a black woman.
Yep.
That is called cognitive dissonance. That's this idea that you're gonna do one thing and then turn the other cheek and do something exactly against the thing that you just said you were doing.
Yeah, I want to say the other reason why I'm not going to listen to any of their music is because if them deciding to go from Lady Antebellum to Lady A is any indication to their ability to be creative, then I don't feel like I need to listen to any of their music.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh, yeah, that whole thing just... But I feel like we all knew it was coming. I mean, at some point, you know, I mean, there's so much to learn and unlearn about being somebody who can actually walk the walk and talk the talk, like do both things. I mean, people don't know enough about American history. They don't know enough about slavery. They don't know enough about oppression. They don't know enough. I mean, there's just so many things that folks need to learn about. And because you're continually learning about these things, it's like you have to start somewhere. And then people, I'm trying to give them a benefit of the doubt, right? Like maybe they tried and they failed because they just don't know enough, so they need to know more. But it can be overwhelming to consistently know you have to learn more about being a better human. Yeah. Some people just like to push. They're like, okay, well, I did my 5-minute reading today of how to be anti-racist and peace. Now I'm done. You know, I
read a paragraph of I can't even think. There's so many books. I'm like trying to think of one title.
I feel like maybe they just read 2 tweets. Like today we read a tweet by Michelle Alexander and a tweet by Noam Chomsky. I don't know. Just Noam Chomsky isn't tweeting. But, you know, I mean, like, choose any 2 insert here. Oh, I'm woke for today.
I've done my woke duties. I've done my woke chores.
My woke chores. Good job. Yay. Look at me. Oof.
I want my snack now.
And that's just giving them like the benefit of the doubt. That's just saying, you know,
that they're not just racist.
That they're not, yeah. At worst, right? At worst, they're racist. I mean, look at their name in the first place. Like, they probably should have thought that through a hot 5-6 seconds longer than they did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they are, if not overtly racist, just casually racist. I'm gonna slander them. I'll slander their names. I don't care. They can come sue me too.
Good. This new Americana band suing all the people of color. That would be fantastic. Yeah. That's got to look good on album sales.
I think the thing is they're an easy. Oh, wait, no, go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say they're from Nashville.
Yeah. So I mean, so I have been in the South, and I have been in that part of the South. So like Georgia, Tennessee, you know, Oklahoma, Texas, like these places. Like, I mean, again, trying to give folks the benefit of the doubt. I understand that the training you have in those places, if you are a white human, is not about social justice, is not about racial justice, is not about equity. I mean, you really are in the places where you're learning that white is right. And so...
Mm-hmm. You're also learning how to properly wear a wide-brimmed hat.
That is true. Or a bow in your hair. Dang, talk about Karen and Ken's kids. Those folks got some bows in. I don't know how they hold up their little noggins. I just don't know how they do it. That's some weight on their shoulders.
It's almost impressive.
It's almost impressive. And honestly, like, this sort of whole idea of performative justice stems from this idea that you think you know what's right for other people, or you think you know what to do that's right by other people. And that's something that Americans have felt that they have known for certain groups for a long time, right? I mean, so you have these white folks who make decisions and say, no, I've done the right thing. We're changing our name. And then they do the wrong thing by saying, this is how we're going to do that. I mean... People of color and women, both groups, I think, have been subject to these sorts of decisions, these like wide-ranging decisions that no one ever really thinks twice about. People just make decisions and they say, oh no, this is the right thing to do, and this is how we're going to move forward with this. And then another thing that just goes horribly awry because nobody asks the people who are actually impacted by these decisions.
The Supreme Court. Hey, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doing stuff.
The Supreme Court they are doing some stuff. I have been roundly surprised. Not by this decision, though.
this decision, this one is a bummer. This one, the Supreme Court has decided that they've decided to uphold the Trump administration's regulation of letting employers opt out of birth control coverage. And this specifically, we're bringing this from the New York Times, this article written by Adam Liptak. As far as I understand it, I think what this means is that if an employer says this is against my religion to support birth control under the healthcare that we provide, they can just decide not to provide that.
Yeah,
basically.
So if they have a moral or religious objection.
Oh, it could be moral too. Okay.
Yeah, to providing birth control, they can opt out of that part of the Affordable Care Act. Because there's a mandate that says that you have to give women access to birth control.
Yeah. How many times have we heard this story about like making decisions about women's bodies?
Yeah.
Just why? Like this, I don't understand. I don't understand why this is still why it matters. Obviously, there's the religious implication, and we know that there's, along with the far right, the mainstreaming of far rightism, fascism, and religious zealots. They've always tried to have their hands in politics and using their money to influence the way these things turn out. Like Hobby Lobby, for instance.
Yeah.
This is like another thing where it's like, I wish we had that universal healthcare.
So there are issues about women's bodies and us being able to make decisions about our own bodies. But in addition to that, there are like constitutional law issues that they're bringing up. There are issues of Congress not doing the right things that they needed to as they enacted the Affordable Care Act. There are allusions to these sorts of ideas of, First Amendment rights, or that's the constitutional part, are more, you can't go against those sorts of things. I mean, this subject is very much sort of like encapsulated into everything that's wrong with American politics, but also some things that are wrong with American law, because again, we have had so few women and people of color in positions of power to sort of enact policy. And so it's another, I think, instructive example of why we need greater representation by different people.
Yeah.
And it also just even comes down to like this idea of like how language shapes the world that we live in, because I mean, I call it the Affordable Care Act very purposefully, because when you call it Obamacare, there's an option to open the door into this idea that a socialist black president tried to do something that he shouldn't have. And so you never hear Trump call the Affordable Care Act the Affordable Care Act, even though that's what it is. You always hear it called Obamacare, because he's trying to rile those folks who think that Obama was a bad president, or that he was trying to institute socialism in American, democracy or whatever. Mm-hmm. Not that those two things, socialism and democracy, can't go together, by the way. But the other issue, in addition to sort of women controlling women's own bodies, are the fact that birth control and contraceptives, I mean, those aren't just women issues, those are societal issues. And so when you tell people that they can't get free or low cost ways to plan their families, that is going to disproportionately affect poor folks and people of color across the board. And so it's not just a women's issue, it's a society issue, because that is deeply impacting society as a whole. How do you fix that? You'd think it would be easy. I don't understand why it's not.
I forgot about the societal impact and affecting poor people, minority groups. I remember reading that before. That's sort of like when I was going down a conspiracy rabbit hole years ago. I remember reading about something like this in terms of like what was it? It was framed as some sort of not like population control, but like almost the opposite. Like you make it so that the people on the bottom never have a way to climb up. This is like an example of doing that. I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry. I'm just throwing out a vague conspiracy that I remember from years ago.
I'm wondering if how much is it like, I know the justices are supposed to be technically unbiased in some way, or, you know, in a sort of theoretical way, I guess. But like, I wonder how much of it is kind of party lines specifically in the birth control case, because it's like that is one of the like Republican tenets is like, you know, pro-life, quote unquote, like anti-abortion, anti-birth control.
Well, it was men versus women.
Yeah, that's true. That's
in the decision. But I mean, all of the men said we're going to get rid of this provision, that it's not that they can't enforce, not going to get rid of it. They said that it's not enforceable, so people can opt out. So all the men said, yes, we're going to allow them to opt out of this. Both women said their reasoning for allowing them to opt out was ridiculous, because a lot of it has to do, like I said, that, like, not only is it constitutional, so you have the religious freedom stuff that, you know, justices talk about, and they talk about First Amendment rights specifically as it relates to that. So we have religious freedom in the United States that is almost always related to Christian freedom. Mm-hmm. Let's just go ahead and point that out. In addition to that, you have a failure of Congress to, this is the argument of the majority, you have a failure of Congress to say exactly what services should or should not be allowed, or could not be instituted underneath this provision of the Healthcare Act. And so they're saying, you know, like, oh, Congress could have made it better. Instead of saying what the two female justices said, which is all of these things should be upheld and women should have access to this, period. And so I don't even know if it's party lines as much as it is just like not really caring about women's health.
Definitely. I think that is more accurate. I feel like we need to start saying that, because I think it's one of those things where it's just in the same way white supremacy is insidious and, you know, wears a lot of different costumes to mask itself. I think that's the same thing with this. I feel like people want to say, oh, it's about religion, about this. But I think at the end of the day, when you talk to those people, if you just spend like an evening with them, you would discover that they actually just hate women. And yeah, I feel like
I was going to say, just a quick correction, is there's 3 women justices and one of
there's 3 women. But, yeah, there are. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry. Did. So two dissented and Kagan did not. Yeah. Thank you, Marks. Can we go back and I can restate that whole thing? Yeah, no, you can just correct me. That's good. It's good.
Bringing up the correction.
No. It's good to be. No. It's good to be. It's good to be corrected and for people to take that without being like, are you sure? What do you mean? No, I'm not wrong. No, I was wrong. There are three female justices. 2 female justices signed on to this dissent. 1 signed on to the majority.
Hunty, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say something stupid. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that Elena Kagan is the 3rd justice. She's the one who signed on with the majority. She sort of signed on to that argument that Congress should be able to better delineate how these sorts of things play out in the bill. So,
but in just, you know, looking at Congress, can they?
Yeah, not right now. They can't do anything other than appoint new justices to different courts all around the nation and make it more conservative. Way to go, Mitch McConnell, you fucking prick.
What a dick.
I hate that. I hate that weird turtle.
It's just because the other thing is, the other stuff that the Supreme Court did, it's weird that this would be something that they would do, because on the other side of stuff, they have deemed half of Oklahoma as a Native American reservation.
It's eastern Oklahoma, so like a huge swath of territory in eastern Oklahoma.
Right. It's long overdue. I don't know what the negative is on this, but that's the sad part. All the stuff. Whenever something positive happens, there's a negative attached to it. Whenever something negative happens,
waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. Whenever something negative happens, it's always like accompanied by something much largely or more negative. Words.
Yeah.
We had to move on to other news real quickly.
Oh, we
but
do? Are you sure?
We
Is that
do.
because we're talking about women's issues and you're not worried about
You know what?
it? Or?
I knew you were going to say that.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And I knew
I'm
that
just
I was
playing.
like, I was wrestling with myself, like, should I open myself up for that or should I?
No, because we could laugh about it.
But real quick, just other things, Supreme Court news, prosecutors. Oh wait, no, never mind. Okay, there was something about they're saying Trump has to release his tax records. But now it's just I'm seeing something that says prosecutors may not get Trump tax records until after the election, which makes it kind of useless.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I guess that's it for Supreme Court news right now. The next thing that we wanted to talk about is...
I mean, it's not like there have been a ton of rulings by the Supreme Court, some of which, like you were talking about, the Oklahoma issue, I think is, I don't know, other than misstating how many female justices were on the Supreme Court, I am actually quite interested in the way the Supreme Court sort of plays out. And Gorsuch is actually, he was like a proponent of Native American rights, American Indian rights. Like he's like done work there before. So maybe we shouldn't be so surprised that he would side on a case, because really that particular case has, like, it could have far-reaching ramifications, but it hasn't in the past. It's really about law enforcement and who is able to prosecute humans if they belong to a tribe. And then, so part of the argument, I believe, for that case, we'll let Marks tell me if I was wrong. Just playing. And I hope that he does, is just determining the boundaries of the reservation. And so they're really saying, this is another sort of like Congress fucked up sort of conversation, actually. So we have birth control, Congress fucked up, or contraception or women's health, Congress fucked up. In addition to Congress fucking up was not being better about about like just taking land from the tribes in Oklahoma through force and then keeping track of that. So I mean, this is like Supreme Court decisions explained badly. It's like a game.
That's what this.
It's like it can be a game.
We'll make it a segment. Like, what did the Supreme? We'll call it. How do Supreme Court do?
How do Supreme Court do?
As we're getting into this, I'm like, wow, I actually don't know a lot about this, so I'll have to do more research, and I'm gonna get flamed in the comments.
Well, it is basically like what are the boundaries of reservations in eastern Oklahoma, and as a result of that, who gets to charge folks with crimes. Mm-hmm. And so the majority decided that for the purposes of this particular case, basically most of eastern Oklahoma is tribal land. What ramifications will that have outside of this sort of like smaller conversation? I feel like Marks wants to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of, I don't know, it's not important, but I was just gonna like, I guess it's not surprising that it's a question of jurisdiction that makes any sort of
right
Native American justice of any sort. So yeah,
that is an excellent point, well stated. For real. Like,
Well done.
Oh good. So white folks are continuing to decide who gets to prosecute folks on tribal land. Okay, you're right. No.
In America Continued news, white folks still deciding what colored people can do or not do.
That is absolutely right. Excellent point, well stated.
Moving on, Trump's niece, Mary, says Trump's reelection would spell the end of American democracy, joining everyone else in that sentiment.
But she's a clinical you know what? I don't. Can we reframe this? I mean, let's keep what you just said, but I would like to push back a little.
Okay.
Let's say Dr. Mary Trump, PhD clinical psychology, says that Donald Trump is batshit crazy. Because if I were Dr. Mary Trump, I would hate being called Donald Trump's niece in perpetuity.
You know what? That's true.
This woman has a master's and PhD in clinical psychology, and she is telling you that this person to whom she is related by no fault of her own is legitimately fucking bad for American democracy. And then she lines out why that's true.
That, you know what, that actually makes me hate this article. What you pointing that out, because yeah, it's this article. So this is the name of the article, or the headline. Or title. It's Trump's niece, Mary, says re-election would spell the end of American democracy. This is written by Ashley Coleman. And this is on Business Insider. And I hate it because I feel like they could have said that, because I didn't know that when I read it. I didn't know that when I first came across this, and I think that would have added. I think that adds more weight to it. I feel like doing it this way is more like clickbaity.
Yeah, well, not just that, it diminishes it to some sort of like family infighting,
squabble
and drama.
thing.
It's basically keeping up with the Kardashians, keeping up with the Trumps, right? Like that's basically what they've sort of, But so, but that happens to women all the time. You know, you've seen that, right? Like it doesn't really matter if women are like the smartest people in the room. They're always, like in relation to some dude who's also in the room. So it doesn't matter how much education I have. I'm usually Mrs.
That's sad.
It's all right. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about Dr. Mary Trump, though, because she has got some things to say. Her book has not been, it's not released yet. So everything we know is through other people talking about what she plans to say.
Like the Kardashians.
I think it's fascinating because it's like somebody with a degree in psychology saying he has narcissistic personality disorder. You were talking about gaslighting earlier. Mm-hmm. That is a key attribute of folks who are narcissists.
Yeah.
Is gaslighting. Like, you have to say things that are untrue and then get people to believe those things.
This is also pretty amazing, because I remember when Trump first got elected and when that whole 2016 election cycle was going on, and there was a lot of people doing like sideline psychology on Trump, and then there was like other people kind of pushing back and saying, we can all kind of make our own assessments, but without us being in the room and actually treating the patient, we aren't really qualified to make a comment on this or that. But this, I think, is different.
I hope so.
I think it's different.
I mean, if people start talking about her qualifications instead of just saying that she's his niece, I mean,
the qualifications and that she's a niece, like both of those things make it like, hey, you should listen to this. This is worth paying attention to. For a number of reasons, but
I mean, I think all of us have felt like this is worth paying attention to. I think that most people who see Donald Trump and the way that he functions would be able to tell there are some deep psychological issues for this human. Yeah. This man, this strange, orange, disturbed man.
There
are so many things.
She added, just quoting from this article quick, she does say that by the time this book is published, hundreds of thousands of Americans will have been sacrificed on the altar of Donald's hubris and willful ignorance, which is super bleak. And it reminds me of Warhammer 40K, just to throw in some nerd stuff for the fans at home. But just like,
but it's true.
It's true. That's what's happening.
The BBC just this morning, we said we were going to talk a little bit about like breaking news that we saw on our Twitter feeds this morning. This morning, the BBC was saying that Donald Trump, this was international news. This is on the BBC. This is coming from the EU. They're like, Donald Trump wears a mask for the first time. International news.
When was this?
today, this morning.
Oh, okay.
I just got it on my Twitter.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, yeah.
That's
the hubris that she's talking about. That's that ignorance. That's the narcissistic personality disorder. That's ignoring anybody who could be smarter than you, but you think you're the smartest human in the room. Like that's, and it's terrifying because she's right. That's what happens for an international news agency to pick up that this is the first time you've worn a mask. Mm-hmm. People are dying.
We could talk about like Fauci, trying to tell us the truth, and then him not being able to get screen time because he's trying to tell the truth, and it goes against what Trump thinks is the truth. But I want to move on, and again, because we're coming down on the wire on this, and we're running a new kind of show here, and we're being very professional.
How have we been doing on your timer?
We're doing
Luci
really
has a timer.
good.
He's really working it too, and it's hard. We're verbose.
We're doing really good, actually. We're doing pretty good. I think the last thing on our list, which is also sad and depressing, is that we're trapped. Americans are trapped. We're trapped in America because our passports are worthless. No one wants us because we're all disease-ridden and filled with the plague.
Damn. Holy hot Hannah. No, this is a good segment. This is Donald Trump's doing. This is why hundreds of thousands of people are dying, and now we are trapped here. We cannot leave.
According to this article is called "American Passports Are Worthless Now," which has a map. It's by Indy Samarajiva. Wow, I'm gonna get hated on in this episode.
Maybe you could look up how to say it, and then Marks could do a little recreative
maybe I could
magic.
Maybe I could do like better research before I
make it hard.
Do, like, actual. Maybe I could do homework before we do this. That's you know what, I'm going to next time. That's my commitment to myself that I'm making publicly. But here we go. Great news. The most reliable projections are saying that 200,000 Americans will be dead and 15 million infected by Election Day in November. But these projections struggle to account for completely irrational federal actions like denigrating masks, pushing to reopen early, and pushing students back into schools. Mm-hmm. At the time, right now, on this day, all the places that you are allowed to go as an American citizen is
because of the fact that coronavirus, COVID-19 runs rampant through our communities, and there is no centralized force that is trying to limit the spread of this disease, period. Like, full stop.
Nothing.
So because of that,
we can go to 29 places.
We can go to 29 places. 29 countries or just 29 places?
Well, here's the thing. So it's 29. Hold on real quick. We are only allowed, as Americans, we can go to a few Caribbean islands and the Balkans.
Wow.
There are
and
195
also countries, and we can go to 29 of those places?
Yes. On top of that, inside of America, we have access to exactly 24 states, or 5 more if you want to endure a 14-day quarantine.
Yes, I was going to say there are places in the United States that I can't go unless I'm going to go and then stay by myself for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So even in America, it's we're trapped. We're all trapped. We're trapped in here together. I'm laughing because it sucks. I'm laughing because it hurts.
The rest of the world is like, y'all better figure out your own shit out. We're going to set you in the corner. That's what they've done. They put us in the corner. We're on timeout, and they're like, figure your shit out. As soon as you stop throwing an ever-loving fit, then maybe. But that's if airlines exist at that point. We don't know if that's going to happen. So,
yeah. In this article, I think it's worth reading for anybody, but it's in the end. There's a quote in here that says, "So Trump was successful in building a wall around America, and he did make the world pay for it. He just never told Americans that they'd be stuck inside.
I love the poetry of that statement and hate everything it stands for.
It's super great and super awesome.
Written.
We're all doing great.
It's well written and so sad.
America #1 in all ways that matter. It's easy to see that there are so many things wrong with things that are happening. Like, I love John Krasinski's Good News. I think that that's sweet and cute and wonderful. And also, we have to deal with the shitstorm that's happening right now. Like, you need to register to vote, and you need to go vote. And if you vote if you vote for Trump, you're actively voting for people to die. So just know that that's something that's happening. I don't know. We talk a lot in our house about who, by the way, and this, I don't know, maybe somebody's written a news story. Maybe we can look it up and it'll be on next week's episode. But who's keeping track of all the fucked up stuff that Trump has done so they can upend it when they get into the presidency? I mean, like, is there a running list? Like, there
how do we know? Like,
I'm sure there's
somebody keeping track of that. Like, these are all the things that actively harm humans that Trump has ensured goes through, or that Mitch McConnell and his Congress has ensured goes through. How do we, oh God, I don't want to know what the list is, but I know some of the things that are on it, and I'm worried about how we're gonna fix some of that stuff.
There was it was a meme photo, but I just sort of took it to be, oh, this is factual. But the photo was because that's where I am, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know that should be in. Like, please take it seriously. Also, memes are where I get all my information. No, I'm just playing. I'm half playing. I'm a quarter joking.
Maybe we could take this out, but I just wanted to say, so, like, according to this meme photo, the countries most affected by the coronavirus are the US, Brazil, Russia, Spain, the United Kingdom, Italy, and France. The countries that are recognized
based on number of cases.
Yeah, the countries that are recognized as having managed the crisis best are Germany, Taiwan, New Zealand, Iceland, Finland, Norway, and Denmark. The important thing about this that this meme photo wants you to know is that the countries that are most affected are all led by men, whereas the countries that are recognized as having managed the crisis the best are all led by women, which made me feel like what we need is a gender reversal version of Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler.
Yes. Girl, get it. Can you get on that right away? Oh, man.
And that's gonna wrap it up for this weekly show. Just gonna quickly just do some pluggables. Hunty, where can people find you and follow you?
I have no idea. I hope they don't.
Okay, fair.
Just follow Luci. Just follow Luci and our amazing leader and shadow producer, Marks.
Our shadow producer.
I'm not the leader. I'm
The best leaders are the ones who refuse to lead.
Oh, well, sometimes.
Sometimes.
I'm going to disagree.
In this case,
I'm also
I'm willing to
agree with the sentiment. Where am I? Oh, at in the shadows, I think it is.
And
have you not been sued for your name?
What? Me?
Have you? Yeah, because it's What We Do in the Shadows. That's a pretty popular, like,
the show.
You haven't been sued for In the Shadows.
No,
yeah. All right.
I don't know.
God.
I haven't gotten any been contacted by anybody.
No. Okay,
we haven't hit that level of fame yet.
It's what they do. It's not what I do.
Sorry, you might. I love. Now it's going to be What I Do in the Shadows, though.
What has been done in the shadows.
All of a sudden, that could be a new title for this weekly thing. What I Do in the Shadows.
What?
Sorry.
That sounds like a deep dive into some crazy perverted stuff.
It does.
What I do in the shadows, you don't know.
Like our news ejection. Like our news ejection.
You can find me on Twitter at PSTLuci, and you can also find us, the whole group, Public Space Pod, on Twitter as well. Like I said at the beginning, we could also be found on our, we have an email address. It's publicspacetravel@gmail.com. And we have a Patreon if you feel like helping support the podcast. It's patreon.com/publicspacetravel. We also have a voicemail that please call us. It's 208-502-1406 or 06 if you are annoyed by people doing 06. Yeah, that's the show.
Yay.
Space travel and so on and so on.
Hi everyone, this is Lazarus Wolf. Just wanted to do a shout out to our patrons. Absolutely a genuine, massive thank you to our supporters who help us continue this podcast. So thank you, David, Noelia, and the Midnight Sloth, for supporting us at the $5 solidarity level.
I like you, and if you can't handle it, you can just, fuck off.
Please consider donating to your local bail or mutual aid fund or another charity for social justice. If also able, you can also support us at patreon.com/publicspacetravel.